Okay, by my watch, it's 3 o'clock. Before we get started, I need to make an announcement. There are two meetings scheduled today. The first meeting will be a continued item from the September 18th and the October 5th meetings, specifically a public hearing, Resolution 2023-21, Energy Service Contract with NG Services US. At the conclusion of the continued meeting, we will take a short break and then begin our regularly scheduled study session meeting at that time. I call to order the continued meeting from September 18th and October 5th. You have a roll call, please.
Director Meyerhoffen?
Here.
Director Duff?
Present.
Director Griffith?
Present.
Vice President Sewell?
Here.
And President Martin.
Here.
Thank you. We have quorum.
As previously mentioned, this is a public hearing. Therefore, this is the process we will follow. First, we'll ask for comments from the public. Secondly, we'll ask NG to provide any additional information that we haven't received so far. Third, we will ask staff for any additional information. And then we will close the public hearing and allow the board to discuss and act on the item. I declare this public hearing open. Is there any member of the public that wishes to make a public comment?
President Martin, there are no members of the public on the line.
Okay, is there anybody here in this room that would like to make a public comment? Okay. Seeing none. Secondly, we'll ask Angie to provide any additional information. Who's going to make that? Ashu, are you there?
Yes, sir. President Martin, members of the board, Ashu Jain with NG, apologize. I couldn't be there in person. I've been in discussions with Mr. Macy, and only besides what we've already presented, the only thing I wanted to add was that we have further negotiated the contract with Mr. Macy and accommodated the district on the price of the measurement and verification, and it is essentially we've reduced our price by, I just did a quick calculation, at somewhere around $175,000. Plus also we accepted, we had an exclusion for fire life safety. We've removed that exclusion. So that could be a lot of money. I have no idea how much that is. We'll find out when we go to the fire life, to the fire authorities. So we continue to, negotiate and reduce our price. And, we've accommodated the district on other terms and conditions, like liquidated damages. So that's all I wanted to add, that, we've further, based on, after giving our best and final offer last time, we further reduced our prices, and we have accommodated the district on other terms. That's all I had to say. I'll be happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Okay. Any questions from the board? Seeing none. Okay. Staff, do you have any additional information?
Yes, President Martin. As Ashu was talking about, we have provided you the latest and greatest contract for your review. There's also copies for the public as well. Some of the differences that from a specific perspective, the total cost is $60,000 less. The construction number now is $17,757,057. Something else that's different than that was presented in this contract, the maintenance service contract was reduced by $5,000 per year to reflect a reduction in reporting costs. Things that we're still evaluating, a total change order cap in sections 4.04, 5.04. We're asking for a cap of 10% of the project cost. Prevailing wage, this is more of a state issue. We want to make sure that the California Labor Code Section 1720 is referenced. That matches up with our typical language. That's not in here yet, as well as one of the late items that we received from JPIA. The contract now has insurance limits, 2 million per occurrence, 4 million aggregate, which is standard in most of our public works contracts. However, because of this size, they're suggesting 5 million per occurrence and 10 million per aggregate. Because of the lateness that we got that information, NG was not able to look at that and decide whether they could meet that with their existing pricing. So that's still up for negotiation, but of everything else in these 44 pages of contract have been worked through other than those items. So at this point, we do feel comfortable moving forward. And if we did make any changes, it'd be either non-substantial and be able to sign it and move forward, or we'd bring an amendment that would not change the overall cost. I believe Arturo has a presentation to answer some of the financing questions that were brought up at our last public hearing.
Okay,
Arturo?
Thank you, General Manager Macy, President Martin, and members of the board. The presentation is in regards to also item number 8 in the approval of the resolution 2023-22. Today is the last day that we can present any additional information on the financing with Bank of America due to the timing. If we extend it any longer, the rate is not going to be extended for us, and therefore that agreement's going to fall through. So I just wanted to remind everyone about that. Let me share the screen here. Here we go. So in looking at all the information for the financing of this project, going back and forth with several agencies, and including bond counsel sitting here today, Cyrus Tarabi, we looked at basically all of our current debts and any other information that we had available to us to ensure that we were going in the right direction for the district. In doing so, we found several situations and issues that we have to deal with before we can move forward, and that's what I'm going to be showing today in terms of how we can move forward with this project. So the Bank of America financing initially was 17.8 in terms of the cost, and includes an additional $35,000 in closing costs at an interest rate of 4.25. And cash flow for 25 years of 22.9 million, with a $5 million cash flow in the first year and 0 for year 2 to 6. Originally, year 1 had a cash flow of around 300,000 because we were trying to put together the IRA monies that we were going to receive in that first year with the payment to match against the payment to Bank of America. However, because of debt service ratios and having to meet certain requirements of revenue to make sure that we're able to pay back those loans, it was not feasible. Because the IRA is not guaranteed, but we would be bound by the payments to Bank of America, we had to modify those that information. And that's what resulted in this is the last cash flow in terms of how it was redone to make sure those numbers match. One of the things that we had not been shown to the board before was those 18 months that we are paying interest. That is a negative cash flow for the district. Obviously, for 18 months, we are going to be paying something, and then it picks up on the second year. So in total, the district would be paying $28 million, including the interest on the loan, for a cash flow estimated of $22.9 million. In looking at all the information and all the debt service ratios, we had to go back and get approval from our current loans in terms of parity debt. Parity debt, what it means is who is in line to collect from the district should we go belly up and we have to start paying our debtors. They want to be first in line, correct? Because nobody wants to be second to another bank to get paid back for those loans. Well, 3 of our current loans basically are taking advantage of the position that we're in to basically cash out. They don't want to extend that courtesy to the district, and basically are requiring that we pay them back in order to move forward with the agreements. That is in the current agreements. Cyrus can provide more information if you need more on that. But the three loans that we have outstanding that require that is City National Bank, 2 loans of $964,000 and $1 million, and PNC, who used to be a BBVA Compass, of $2.3 million. So roughly, including interest, that amount comes to $4.3 million that we would have to. We do have options in order to do that. So Cyrus is here today because one way we can move forward is either we pay down those debts so we don't have to worry about those requirements, or working with B of A, they basically provided that they can take over those loans in order to meet those requirements, which means it adds to the debt that we have to pay Bank of America, including closing costs and including additional interest rates that are higher than what they were when we first took out those loans. So one option is to pay back the $15 million to Wells Fargo, which is the main issue here. $15 million that has to be paid in January of 2025. Well, those banks are looking at it as one-time payment. Are we able to make that payment to all of our debts with the revenue that is coming in? That's an easy answer. That's no, we cannot. We're not going to have $15 million left over most any given year to pay back that kind of debt. So Cyrus, when we did this loan, wrote it so that we could spread that 15 million over 25 years. So that's easier to calculate in those numbers. That is the number that BBVA, our PNC, and City National are saying, no, you're not allowed to smooth that over. You owe $15 million that year. You have to pay $15 million, and you have to show that the revenues are covering that. And obviously, we don't. And so I'm not recommending that we do that. Why? Because we still have 2 major projects associated with that loan. And I'll show you the cash balances in the next slide so you can see why I'm saying that. We could pay the 3 loans at $4.3 million, or we could work with Bank of America, like I stated earlier, at an additional cost of $240,000. That's the interest difference and the amount that we will have to pay those loans early. That cash flow for Bank of America taking over those loans ends up with a lease payment total of $32.5 million and $18 million in cash flow. So you can see those first couple of years, we did not want to extend the PNC debt, and we did not want to extend the City National Bank. We basically mirrored those payments into this loan so that we could show how we were going to pay it back. But that is an additional cost to the district. It is more cumbersome. It is more detailed. Obviously, this type of loan does not allow the district to go over 20 years, which is why we're limited in the amount of the spread of the debt. However, we are ready to move forward with the resolution with this option as of today, unless we hear otherwise from the board as to how you want us to go about this. Again, we do not want to pay that $15 million with Wells Fargo simply because it is tied to the 2 major projects. Additional projects associated with the loan is $25.7 million. We have in the bank right now with CalTrust as of September 30th, $30.1 million. In addition, we have the Wells Fargo, which is sitting at 19.6. If we were to pay back the $15 million, that would leave $4.6 million in the bank. That is not sufficient for any emergency in case something happens. We are still ordering the electrical parts for the regional plant. They're going to cost roughly $6 million. If that came about right now, we have to be first in line. Otherwise, we lose our line again, and we have to wait additional time for those. So my recommendation is to keep that $15 million so that we can continue working with the plant projects. We also have an outstanding grant receivables of $20 million that we are scheduled to receive over the next 6 months. That is the balance of the project, less what we have already received. So in summary, basically what it comes down to, there is another way to move forward. I'm not here to tell you what that looks like. But if the district does not move forward with the Engie contract, the only other option to meet the requirements of the IRA would be to buy the panels, the district alone, and then decide what the next steps are. That is another solution. The cost to the district to order those panels and then move forward with everything else related to that contract and the Inflation Reduction Act would be 1.7 million, which obviously we have that available to us at this point. The Bank of America loan, great deal, 4.25. However, in speaking to a few other banks, we are a government agency. We're not going anywhere. They would line up to work with us in any given situation. In fact, a few of the banks that I spoke to basically kept telling me, you're going at this in the wrong direction in terms of the financing. There's better financing out there. However, because of the timing, it's going to take you longer to apply and get those type of loans, but we lose out on the project starting immediately. So there is other options out there, but it's going to take us longer to get to them, which means we could lose out on the IRA money at this time. And finally, the net EM 2.0 additional that we have a timeline on that it has to be completed by March 2026. And we're basically sitting in the same position we were as we were on October 5th, where we were waiting for the final Bank of America loan documents. The auditor still has to review the information. The type of loan, taxable versus non-taxable, it's easier to get, but obviously you see the restrictions now that we have to go through, in addition to the fact that we're not eligible for other types of financing that could extend those payments to the district. We also want to refinance, which is now in the current B of A loan documents. We're extending those periods and allowing the district to a little bit more flexibility than we have right now. And finally, the district can restrict the way that the funds are distributed on the escrow agreement that we're still going back and forth on that. The rate of return used to be 11 to 12 years. Based on the additions of debt and all the other information that I presented, that number is now 15 years. So that extends the life of when we're going to recover those costs for the district, which is another concern and something to consider. So what do I need today from the board in order to keep this going forward? The project with Engie has to be approved. Otherwise, the Bank of America has stated that if we do not have another contractor, that means that the project might not be viable and therefore not guaranteed, and therefore the loan is not approved. So in order to move forward, we would have needed another contractor today, if not Engie, to move forward with the financing. That means that we're left over with pretty much the paperwork to sign as is, depending on how the board decides to go on the loan. And I'll answer any questions.
Okay, Ted?
So 1.4 million to buy our own panels, and then it's actually starting the project, correct?
That's the estimate, yes.
Okay. And then to refinance the 3 loans that we have out, it's going to cost 200 and some thousand.
230,000.
Okay. And then with the interest that we're paying for the first 2 years while we're trying to do the project, plus the other 200,000, we're really looking at a 3-year out before we actually are able to save on our electric bill.
Right.
If we buy the panels and our own engineers take care of the project, will Bank of America go for that on the loan?
Not at this point.
At this point?
Immediately after saying that it was not contingent upon the vendor or the project, they basically said, yeah, we'll work with you. We're willing to work with you in any given situation, but we have to have something definitive in order to move forward.
All right, I was just thinking a little bit out of the box there. You know, it's sad that we got into this situation like this with everything. And as far as the financing goes, I still would rather wait and see where the interest rates, they may come down. We just don't know. Thank you, Joe, for all the work you put into this.
Ivan?
Can you kind of elaborate on the other financing options you mentioned? Should we not go with Bank of America?
Yeah, there's bonds that we could go after, or let me remember the acronym for PPA, Power Purchase Agreement, yeah. And so those are other options where basically we give the project out to another agency. They pretty much do the construction for us, do all of that information, and basically sell us the benefit of having those panels in the district property. So there is other items out there that we could benefit from. We would have to look at how feasible and the actual benefit to the district. But there is others out there that at the end of the day would cost less for the district.
And you think that they'd still be possible to do with our timing to make the NIM and to make the additional funding that
In terms of the project, I'm not comfortable enough to tell you that if we buy them today, that's going to allow us to do everything else, but that is an option. So financially, if we make that payment for the panels and then come back and figure out something else for either a loan or go in a different direction, that's going to be up to the board and however else we bring that to your attention.
Okay, and is there any more staff, or is Kenwood making any other presentation, or are these our final questions?
Based on the questions we received, we thought we had done everything but finance, but Kenwood is available to answer any questions at this time. They're on the call.
Just to be honest, I've gone back and forth on this project so many times, I don't even think I want to admit it, but I think what really stuck out to me is, you know, ideally this is going to be great for, we're going green, it's good for the environment, all these different things, but at the end of the day, it's really the cost savings for our ratepayers. And I know Kenwood said it is possible to save more. I just, I guess, want to get staff's thoughts on if they believe, you know, we could do a project, solar project, similar for less and an overall greater savings.
The one thing I can answer is that the financing is available to us regardless of how we go, whether we stay with Bank of America or any other option. There is options out there. I had two banks wanting to come and present and basically tell the board, you don't want to do this loan because of the restrictions that it has, and then they wanted to present their own options. However, those options are, again, take a lot longer. They're not as easy to go after. And the paperwork that is required is more extensive. And so it would take us, let's say, an additional year to even put something together that actually is more beneficial. However, we would be able to take a look at all of our debts, look at all of our options, look at all of the details that we have to go through to finance other projects, to look at a long-term financial viability in all of these projects and put a more of a timeline to priorities. That would be ideal. However, I do realize the time limit that we have in this particular project.
I guess then a question for Kenwood is just, what is your opinion on timing? If you believe we could still complete this project, should we go with the different financing options that might take us 6 months to a year?
This is Tim Holmes. It is definitely going to push the timeline. I believe as long as an RFP process includes the timeline in it, that, you know, you can meet all of the timings of the NEM. I don't believe that the RESBCT has the same timing issue, although ASHU might have information that says that it does. So it's really about getting those NEM 2 projects done, and I think you can.
And then have you seen, I know it's been a common theme that, you know, the longer we wait, the more the price is going to continue to rise. have things somewhat leveled off, or are they still rising pretty fast?
I'm not an economist, so I have a little difficulty there. You can still get competitive pricing. But I don't know if I can predict how much it'll go up or go down. I think you can meet the pricing that I had outlined in the presentation that I did last week.
Okay. And one thing that keeps coming back to me is when we originally hired Kenwood, Ashu, I'm just paraphrasing, but he said that you were tough but fair. So I appreciate all of your help, Tim. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Robert? Oh, okay. I know she'll have more to say. So that's
Just
why-
for the record, Ivan, so the latest CPI was 3.7%. Arturo, so you have mentioned that there are other options. They just take a while that would be possibly lower interest rates. Time-wise, what are you looking at in terms of turnaround? I know you said some might take up to a year, but if you were to pick something that would be our best option interest rate-wise, what would that be?
At that point, I would actually bring someone else to give us those answers, depending on how fast you want to move with this, and what you want us to look into in terms of this project itself, or look at everything else that we're working on right now. So I would say that can't give you an answer, but otherwise bring someone else to look at something which might take up to 6 months for us to have something ready to go and put together.
Okay, thanks. That's all the comments. I mean, that's all the questions. I have comments, but I'll save them for later.
Okay. Amber?
Turned on and then turned right back off. Sorry about that. Thank you for all the hard work all of you have put into this. NG, Tim, our staff. I know that you guys have all been working really hard the last month, especially trying to come up with terms that can work for us. And I know that I agree with everything said so far. This is something we would love to bring to our community. Going green, bringing solar, bringing long-term savings, helping the environment, helping the raising energy costs and keeping costs down for our ratepayers is always our priority. But at what cost is what we're asking ourselves that right now. And I think that given what you've presented today, and I just kind of want to verify, you said that we have the funds available today to independently purchase the solar panels. No loans, no interest. We could do that if we so decided tomorrow.
And that's one of the things that I wanted to make sure that I was clear about. It all depends on the project that we end up doing. I mean, there's nothing from stopping the district from ordering panels. That's a given. However, how does that fall within the contract that we end up going with? It depends.
Right.
And so that's how it would go. We can order them. And are we making that decision, the right decision ourselves, to make sure that that's what we should have bought in the first place? So that those are the back and forths that I think we would need someone else to also answer for us. The money is there. That's not a question. It's what do we need to do from here to make it work?
But in reviewing what you said on the 5th and then again today, without the guarantees of the grant money coming through in that first year, if we say yes to the terms as they sit today, we are going to be in trouble next year making those payments.
We were able to move those numbers around to make it work, so we're not going to be in trouble. There is more ties to that now we're bound by additional. In fact, those loans that we talked about, those 3 loans, they are going to come back to the board because we have to fix that. Those restrictions are pretty, significant, and we don't want those in there. I'm not sure how we got around to having that in the first place. However, that's what it comes down to. It is feasible as it stands right now. It's how we move around it. That 230,000 is just additional, but we do get the savings in the long run from the project. It's, are we comfortable that that's how much we want to save, or what else do we need to look at? And in terms of the financing, yeah, there is something cheaper out there, but does the timeline to extend it is a benefit, or a, it's just waiting in time for costs to go up? That is a trade-off.
Well, and then given what we were told by Tim last week, and correct me if I'm wrong, Tim, but I think you said that it's not like if we lose this year, we don't lose the opportunity to apply again next year for the same thing. Am I correct? Okay, he said that's correct. We couldn't hear him, but I saw his
Yeah,
mouth.
that is correct, yes.
Okay, all right. But only for the, I'm sorry, only for the what?
Only for the one, the 6 million.
Not the 6 million, for the 1 million. So we would still be out the 6 million if that was not before December. Am I understanding that correctly?
No, we would only lose on 600,000, I believe.
600,000. Okay. That's it for me. Thank you.
Yeah, the regional wastewater treatment facility that we have was designed intentionally so that it could be expanded later on to meet additional needs. Is it possible to start out with a smaller project that wouldn't, and then over, and say 5 years from now, expand it according to needs and stuff like that, rather than getting the entire project done at one time? What are the possibilities of doing something like that?
I'll defer that question to.
Yeah, it comes back to the net energy metering too. You have a couple of years to get that done. It's I think it's April of 2026. It has to be done. The net energy metering 3 rules, which are written and we know what they are, will have a significant impact on savings. So all of the projects that are net energy metering, which are, I think 5 out of the 6 or 6 out of 7, I forget how many sites there are net energy metering. I also think, and again, Ashu might have information on this too, is the RESBCT program. I believe they are considering rewriting some rules, and that also, which could make it either go away or be less attractive. So, you can do things. The energy, the solar panels will work in 5 years. In fact, they might be a little bit better, but the economic analysis is going to change.
Okay,
President Martin, can I make some comments?
sure.
This is Ashu. Okay, so let me, I'm trying to remember everything that I wanted to say. Looking at alternative financing, and I'm not a financial advisor, I'm not aware of anything that can be done expeditiously enough that we can meet the net metering guideline. So that is going to be very challenging. We are up against a deadline anyway. If you buy solar panels directly, I'm not sure what that does for you. You get 30%, you'll pay higher than what we'll buy it for, but I'm not sure what you're trying to achieve by doing that, because you'll get 30% of that as the, or whatever, 34% as the IRA benefit. But what we are talking about, the reason we wanted to buy the panels now and have them delivered is to avoid the $600,000 penalty if you delay it beyond this year. So that's the one that we are trying to avoid. So that's the one thing. It's if you make a decision now, you're getting, you're making another $600,000 in IRA money versus moving it to next year. As I know the financing is getting very, there's too many options in front of you, and because of your past loans. The bottom line here is, and something Mr. Macy said last time, if you go with what you have right now, you're guaranteed to save $18 to $20 million here. So is that something you would like to risk so that you might make more money. You know, if you completely change course, do an RFP, find another company to do the project, negotiate a PPA. I mean, somebody mentioned a power purchase agreement as an option. Well, the benefit of power purchase agreement used to be that they would get a 30%, the company provider would get a 30% tax benefit. Well, that benefit is now being given to the district because of the Inflation Reduction Act. So you're getting the same benefit. So PPAs are no more attractive, except PPAs are very complicated. We're one of the largest PPA providers. And it takes months to negotiate a contract. So I think the bottom line is, you know, you have everything in place today to approve a project, and you will make $18 to $20 million, or, you know, versus maybe, you know, if you delay it, maybe you can do better. Or in my biased opinion, you know, I think it'll be much worse. So that's what I wanted to say. Thank you.
Okay. Any additional questions from staff, or excuse me, from the board? No? Yes, David?
I guess as a question for Brian, should we not move forward with the Engie contract? Could you give us a rough idea of timing, and do you feel like it's a given that we'll miss out on that 600,000? Or do you think there's a way that if we were to go out to bid, just to get me a better idea of, is that still a possibility?
So that 600,000 is we have to have, I believe it's 5% somewhere paid for and delivered by, I think, of March of next year. That's going to be difficult. And I think Tim brought it up at one point, that $600,000 that we may lose in the grant funding, could that be offset by the difference in construction cost? And Tim made the comment that it would be. So I think that discussion right there, that 10%, why we'd like to get as much grant funding as we could, based on the price that's been presented and based on the information provided by Kenwood Energies, the delta is still not in our favor. And unfortunately, while we can do water and sewer very, very well, we don't do electricity. So I have to look to Ashu and Tim for those types of responses. So based on everything that I've heard right now, it'd be difficult. I'm not saying that we could, because we could move forward with a purchase. Does that then check that box so we get that extra 10%? I don't know those regulations well enough. I'd look to those, but we could do it. We have the resources. Would we find a bonded warehouse that we could put this? I'm guessing we would. I don't know how much that would cost, but we would work through that.
And then as far as if we were to go out to bid, what do you see that timeline being?
I don't have that information with me today. Tim, would you want to go out on a limb today and say something like that? Or is that something that I can bring back to them possibly on Monday?
Yeah, I think it says I think we should talk before I open my mouth.
Yeah. To be honest with you, we never really, we talked about being able to meet the NIM2 deadlines. We talked about meeting the BCT, but as far as putting that in motion to try to get that 10%, we never really looked at it from that constrained time frame, because you're looking at a difference of almost a 2-year time frame between 2024, 2026 for the NIM stuff. So we didn't look at it from that condensed schedule, but it's something we could have prepared for Monday.
Okay. And then just a comment, I'm not too big of a proponent of buying the panels before we have, I'd rather have someone win the bid and they handle the buying with what panels they are hoping to use.
So would we.
Robert?
President Martin, one more
Yes.
comment.
Go ahead.
So buying the panel for 1.7 million, you're only going to get the benefit of 10% of that. So you'll avoid a penalty of 170. So it depends on the total Inflation Reduction Act benefit. So if you spend 1.7 million, all you're avoiding by buying it this year is a penalty of 170,000. However, if you do the rest of the project next year, you'll still get 90% of the rest of the project. You're not gonna get, 100%. So what you're avoiding by buying the panels is not 600,000 loss, you're avoiding 170,000 out of the 600,000. So it's not, it doesn't do a whole lot for you. The ResBCT has, I forgot to answer Tim's question. The ResBCT, there is a megawatt limitation, and I don't think, from what I recall seeing in the last, I must have looked at the tracker 2, 3, 4 weeks ago. I don't think that's a big cause for concern. If you delay the project by 3 months or so, I don't think you'll get in trouble with the ResBCT, but that rate schedule was not very popular. But because the net metering 3.0 has become so much worse, people are actually, we are proposing so many more ResBCT projects now because now it's becoming more attractive compared to NEM. So I don't know what the future brings, but if you have to look at the past, ResBCT was not a very attractive rate schedule, but that has changed dramatically. So and I'll always be honest, I don't think 2 to 3 months is gonna make a difference to the ResBCT part.
Okay, thank you, Ashu. Do we have, I'm sorry, Robert, did you have anything? Amber, anything else?
I just have comments.
Okay. Go ahead.
If there are no more, if there's no more question and answers, then I believe we close the public hearing and then the dais then starts to discuss just as a form.
Oh, okay, all right.
Sorry.
Yeah. Yes, is there any members of the public that wish to address the board at this time?
Have a chance later.
Not online, President Martin.
And anybody present here that would like to speak to the board?
Will we be able to speak later or is now the time?
Well, this is the point in time in the public hearing. It's your, okay, sure, come on up, Jeff. Always happy to hear what you have to say.
Thank you. Jeff Bowman, 20-year resident, Desert Hot Springs, and have sat on your board for 9 years and now over on Desert Water Agency's board. I owned a hotel in town, as you know, and we looked at putting solar on it, and it did not pencil at that time. I bought a house, however, in 2016, and it had solar already on it. I have since then added to that solar, and where I'm going with this is the plan to save money for the district is admirable. I'm a ratepayer. I want you to save all the money we can. My questions would be, are we spending a lot of money to save a little money? And secondly, you have 7 sites that I could count that you're going to solarize. Could they be broken down and could we do a pay as we go kind of a thing, one at a time, in other words? The thought being the cost of panels go down and the efficiency of panels go up. My original panels on my house were 280 watt panels. I have 17. I, about 2 years ago, put 14 at 400 watt panels at a whole lot cheaper than the prior panels were put on. So I'm just suggesting, if you're trying to do a big chunk and put a lot of money out there and go into debt quite a bit, is it really worth it overall? And I would personally look at it a little bit harder on the cost benefit savings. Some of you on the board, I was on the board when we had a proposal come before us to put solar, and it didn't pencil then. And I'm just wanting to make sure that you guys do your math and that it does pencil now, because we ratepayers depend on saving the money. Anyway, as I sat down, break it down, do a 1 or 2 and see how it works. You might not get an NEM2, all of them, that's okay. We don't know what NEM3, the impacts will be. sadly, when I added my panels, I went from NEM1 to NEM2. Wish I had one, but I have two. So anyway, we don't have to spend all this money and go into all this debt all at once is the point. Thank you, guys. I appreciate all your hard work.
Thank you. Let me ask a question of staff on there. We had in our other solar field that we have, it was completed several years ago. There was a projected savings to the district and everything. Did we meet that projected savings, and are we still continuing saving on that?
Oh, I would ask Danny to come up and provide that information.
All right.
Good afternoon, President Martin, members of the board. The original project that was projected had almost, I want to say double, but just a little bit less than 2/3 is what we are making compared to that. And that was because Edison changed their regulatory requirements before our project finished out. And that was a Res BCT project. Because of that, we also did, and it's, I forget the name, Brian, can you help me out? Actually, Ashu and Engie is the one that helped us get the savings, the check back. I apologize for forgetting the name of it, but we were able to get a refund back in a sense. And then we also locked in a rate for a period of time that would allow us to make some of that savings back. So entirely, no. It probably equates to about 2/3 the amount that we originally projected.
Okay. All right,
But,
thank you.
but to add to that, we do see our benefiting accounts see a $250,000 a year reduction in energy costs related to the solar facility. It may still have been 2/3, but it's still a savings to the district.
Slightly less than that, but yes.
Okay, all right.
And I may add, if that was a $500,000 investment. So the ROI on that was just a few years.
No.
So it was
And the
$500,000 investment, and we're saving $200,000 on that one?
Yeah, there was a grant of 3.34 million through
Yeah,
3.4
I was going to add the grant is what made that project viable. We had an AQMD grant that provided, as Danny just said, $3.3 million. We put in $500,000 of our own. We got it to 1 megawatt, and we were able to, like we talked about, see the savings of 250,000.
And if I may, I apologize. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. So what we're saying here is you had a $4 million project total with all the grant money, and that project is saving $200,000 a year for us.
Yes.
So in the project, give me a minute here, Danny. So right now, with this 14 million, $18 million, where we're at with it now, we're only going to be saving about 100 and, well, our loan payment was going to be a 1.33 million. We're paying 1.5 million in electric costs. So we're only really saving less than 200,000 on this big project. So maybe going with some smaller ones might be a better idea.
Just for a bit of clarification, if I may.
Yes, please.
We weren't necessarily required to put that money up. When the change of the project costs came in, because it was a design build, we were only able to build a smaller footprint and to make up the power that was initially projected in the original preliminary design. We opted to put in the $500,000. At that time, we had no money obligated to the project. The district did agree to that. 3.8 is where the project landed, and they brought it to a 1 megawatt project. So I can't remember, it's been some time, but I can't remember what size it would have been had we not ponied up the $500,000. But that is what made the project the exact same size as originally proposed.
Yeah.
It was the Edison regulatory changes that affected also our ability to recognize the original projected savings.
Thank you, Danny.
Thank you.
Ivan? Robert?
You close public hearing.
Oh, I want a response to his additional
Oh,
information.
no.
Okay. With that, if there's nothing else, I'm going to close the public hearing. And Is there any additional board discussion?
Yes. Yes. Okay, I think you're channeling me, Mr. Bowman, okay? So there's been a lot of figures thrown around here. The one that sticks out most in my mind is the $28 million, which is the cost. And I'm a solar advocate. I have solar on my home. I got it 2 years ago. Best thing I ever did. Big proponent. But cost-wise, I really have some concerns. I have a hard time digesting 27 million, let alone 32 million if we have to pay off these other loans. I think that's a really big burden for us to put on the district. I have a list here of 3 pages of capital improvement projects, some of which have still not had funding, that I think are probably of greater importance in terms of the service that we provide, in terms of the resiliency, which I think after Tropical Storm Hillary, we all realize is very, very important. I would not have a problem taking a look at these projects on an individual basis and picking off a few here and there, and some we might get NEM 2 and some we might get NEM 3 down the road, but you know, little digestible bits here and there. I have a really hard time looking $32 million in the face and saying, yeah, I'm okay with this. I think it's a great project. Like I said, I'm a solar proponent, but you know, Ashu just said we're saving 18 to 20 million, but if we're saving 20 million and spending 32, we're really not saving that. I see you shaking her head. That is what he said. Okay. So for me, I cannot at this time consider moving forward on this just because I think it's way too much. I would prefer we do some RFPs for smaller projects, take some time to look at other financing and see what's out there, and see a way we can do this possibly all over a longer period of time, eventually get to all the sites. But that's my thought process right now.
Okay, Amber?
I don't want to say I agree, but I agree. Unfortunately, given the laundry list of work that we have to do as a district and the administrative building goals and the infrastructure needs, removing septic systems, there's just so much on our list to do, and to take that much money and just put it aside and not be able to use it for our benefit and not have any immediate benefit like the Wells Fargo loan is providing. I just don't feel that this is something we can move forward on until we're at a point where some of these other bigger projects have had a chance to get done that have been waiting for 5 or 6 years. That's where I'm at. Thanks.
Okay.
President Martin, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I think I need to clarify what I said because it's being misconstrued. You know,
Okay.
I said the district will save 18 to 20 million. That's after all costs. That's after paying for the 27 million. So it's not before that. That's all I wanted to say, that, you know, the savings were net savings that I was talking about. So you are saving around 18 to 20 at the minimum over the 25 years. So that's almost like you know, $900,000 a year. That's all. Thank you.
Okay. Any additional comments based on what he just said, Albert? Ted?
Yeah, yes. I agree with what the other directors are saying. I would feel more comfortable after we get our strategic plan. We understand what direction we're going. We do have a lot of projects, and we need to figure that all out and know where we're at with that. I also agree with what Mr. Bowman had to say when he came up. I'm not sure if we're really looking into the technology, as I said, about the N panels and the P panels. The university had 25% more of a production rate out of the N panel. So we really need to look into where the technology is going, where we're going to be at. This whole thing started with it was just kind of like a conceptual idea where we weren't under any obligation. And there were 3 companies. NG was the one that ended up giving us this information. What happened with the other 2 companies, I don't know. But as we go through this, then the district has to spend money for a consultant to see what was going on with NG. That's something that really kind of throws me off. And then the $2 million deduction. And then today I come in and what was it, Mr. Macy, 60,000 more that was taken off of the price?
Yes.
Okay, so there we are. And so what's really going on here? And then all the financial end of this. So I agree, we really need to slow down here. And President Martin, when you made the comment about the doing the different projects at a different time, and can we just do one? I think that's a good idea. If we go out for bid, maybe we should split it up to where it's the Horton treatment plant and the Nancy Wright treatment plant, and then all the other smaller ones. Maybe split it up somehow. However, management figures out we can do that properly, and with the engineering too. I'm sorry, with the financing part of it. So the only way I would want to continue with this is if it actually went out for bid and we were to see that. Thank you. Any further?
I'll agree with what's been said and just kind of give my thoughts moving forward. I too have solar. I got in just before NIM 3.0, and it really didn't make much sense to me to do my solar project if it would have been 3.0. I want to thank NG that we have that NIM 2.0, and it's a possibility for us as long as we get it done by the March 2026. I think if we don't move forward and we decide to go another route, I would really like to see us at least trying to get that everything that we're qualified for the 2.0, maybe not the art VCT, but I think the costs between that and 3.0, should we do solar in the future, I think it'd be worth it to at least take a look at trying to get that. I think it's about 2 megawatts done under the 2.0. Thank you.
And the only comment I have, and I understand everything that's been said here, and you do make some excellent points, is the cost in delaying the project. And I refinanced my house about 5 years ago from 3.9 down to 2.6% interest. The interest rates now for financing a home are nowhere near that, and you'd pay significantly more. And I'm concerned about delaying the project and having it cost much more than what we're already, which would cause us probably to abandon the project entirely. And I think that would be a mistake. So that's all I have to say. And with that, regarding resolution 2023-21 energy services contract, I'd like a roll call vote, please.
You got a motion?
I need a motion in a second.
Oh, I'm sorry.
What?
Yes. Thank you. Thank you, Ted. Thank you. I'll entertain a motion to close the hearing and to take a vote on approval of resolution 2023-21 energy services contract with NG Services US. Is there a motion?
I will move, we not move forward.
I'll second the motion.
Okay. We have a motion and a second.
So there was no second.
Yes, I second it.
Well, if to the extent that the president was making a motion, there was no second, as I understand it.
Yes,
You,
there was.
okay.
Yeah.
And so then there was a motion and a second, and so you need to take a roll call on that.
We have a roll call vote, please.
To clarify, Mr. Pinckney, the motion was made by President Martin, seconded by Director Griffith?
No, it's
No.
Director Griffith's motion.
The president made a motion. There was no second. It died for lack of a second. Then there was a motion made by Director Griffin and seconded by Director Meyerhoffen. And that's the motion before the body.
And that motion is to deny.
Director Meyerhoffen?
Yes.
Director Duff,
Yes.
Director Griffith,
Aye.
Vice President Sewell,
Yes.
President Martin.
No.
The motion to deny resolution 2023-21 passes.
Okay. Thank you, Angie Corporation, for your hard work on this, and staff for all the hard work you did. So. With that, we'll take a 5-minute break before we go into our next meeting.